Hello friends. Today here I am again for again I am here so that we can proceed further into the story of Rakshasa, right? The next part of that story. So till now what we have found that that Brahman, he couldn't recall his wife, and all of a sudden it has been told that that woman who is claiming that she is the wife of the Brahman is actually a Rakshasi, the female demon. So let's start the story. The Rakshasi and the Brahman lived together for about a week. When the former said to the latter, I am very anxious to see my sister, your other wife. You must go and fetch her, and we shall all live together happily in this large and beautiful house. You must go early tomorrow, and I shall give you clothes and jewels for her. Next morning, the Brahman, furnished with fine clothes and costly ornaments, set out for his home. The poor woman was in great distress. All the Brahmans and the Pandits that had been to the funeral ceremony of the king's mother had returned home loaded with loaded with largesses, but her husband had not returned, and no one could give any news of him, for no one had seen him there. The woman, therefore, concluded that he must have been murdered on the road by highwaymen. Highwaymen. She was in this terrible suspense when one day she heard a rumor in the village that her husband was seen coming home with fine clothes and costly jewels for his wife. And sure enough, the Brahman soon appeared with his valuable load. On seeing his wife, the Brahman Das accosted her, come with me, my dearest wife. I have found my first wife. She lived in a stately palace near which are hillocks of rupees and a large hill of gold mohurs. Why should you pine away in wretchedness and misery in this horrible place? Come with me to the house of my first wife, and we shall all live together happily. When the woman heard her husband speak of his first wife, of hillocks of rupees, and of a heel of gold mohurs, she thought in her mind that her half witted good man had become quite mad. But when she saw the exquisitely beautiful silks and satins and the ornaments set with diamonds and precious stones, which only queens and princesses were in the habit of putting on, she concluded in her mind that her poor husband had fallen into the messes of a Rakshasi. The Brahman, however, insisted on his wife's going with him and declared that if she did not come, she was at liberty to pine away in poverty, but that for himself he meant to return forthwith to his first and rich wife. The good woman, after a great deal of altercation, with her husband, resolved to go with him and judge for herself how matters stood. They set out accordingly the next morning and went by the same road on which the Brahman had travelled. The woman was not a little surprised to see hillocks of chorus of pies and 8 anna pieces of rupees, and last of all a lofty heel of gold mohurs. She saw all she saw also an exceedingly beautiful lady coming out of the palace hard by and hastening towards her. The lady fell on the neck of the Brahman woman, wept tears of joy, and said, "Welcome, beloved sister. This is the happiest day of my life. I have seen the face of my dearest sister." The party then entered the palace. What with the stately mansion in which he was lodged, with the most delectable delectable, what with the stately mansion in which he was lodged, with the most delectable provisions which seemed to rise as if by enchantment, what with the caresses and endearment endearments of his two wives, the one human and the other demonic, who vied with each other in making him happy and comfortable. The Brahman had a jolly time of it. He was steeped as it were in an ocean of enjoyment. Some 15 or 16 years were spent by the Brahman in this state of Elysian pleasure, during which period his two wives presented him with two sons. The Rakshasi's son, who was the elder and who looked more like a god than a human being, was named Sahasradal, literally the thousand branched. And the son of the Brahman woman, who was a year younger, was named Champa Dal, that is, branch of a Champaka tree. The two boys loved each other dearly. They were both sent to a school which was several miles distant, to which they used every day to go riding on two little ponies of extraordinary fleetness. The Brahman woman had all along suspected from a thousand little circumstances that her sister in law was not a human being but a Rakshasi. But her suspicion had not yet ripened into certainty, for the Rakshasi exercised great self restraint on herself and never did anything which human being did not do. But the demonic nature, like murder, will out. The Brahman, having nothing to do in order to pass his time, had recourse to hunting. The first day he returned from the hunt, he had bagged an antelope. The antelope was laid in the courtyard of the palace. At the sight of the antelope, the mouth of the raw eating Rakshasi began to water. Before the animal was dressed for the kitchen, she took it away into a room and began devouring it. The Brahman woman, who was watching the whole scene from a secret place, saw her Rakshasi sister tear off a leg of the antelope and opening her tremendous jaws, which seemed to her imagination to extend from earth to heaven, swallow it up. In this manner, the body and other limbs of the antelope were devoured till only a little bit of the meat was kept for the kitchen. The second day another antelope was bagged, and the third day another. And the Rakshasi, unable to restrain her appetite for raw flesh, devoured this too as she had devoured the first. On the third day, the Brahman woman expressed to the Rakshasi her surprise at the disappearance of nearly the whole of the antelope, with the exception of a little bit. The Rakshasi looked fierce and said, "Do I eat raw flesh? Do I eat raw flesh?" To which the Brahman woman replied, "Perhaps you do, for a ought I know to the contrary." The Rakshasi, knowing herself to be discovered, looked fiercer than before and vowed revenge. The Brahman woman concluded in her mind that the doom of herself, of her husband, and of her son was sealed. She spent a miserable night, believing that next day she would be killed and eaten up, and that her husband and son would share the same fate. Early next morning, before her son Champadal went to school, she gave him in a small golden vessel a little quantity of her own breast milk and told him to be constantly watching its color. Should you? She said. See the milk get a little red, then conclude that your father has been killed. And should you see it grow still redder, then conclude that I am killed. When you see this, gallop away for your life as fast as your horse can carry you, for if you do not, you also will be devoured. The Rakshasi, on getting up from bed, and she had prevented the Brahman overnight from having any communication with his wife, proposed that she and the Brahman should go to bathe in the river, which was at some distance. She would take no denial. The Brahman had therefore to follow her as meekly as a lamb. The Brahman was impending, but it was beyond her power to avert the catastrophe. The Rakshasi on the riverside, assuming her own proper gigantic dimensions, took hold of the ill fated Brahman, tore him limb by limb, and devoured him up. She then ran to her house and seized the Brahman woman and put her into her capacious stomach, clothes, hair, and all. Young Champadal, who agreeably to his mother's instructions, was diligently watching the milk in the small golden vessel, was horror struck to find the milk redden a little. He set up a cry and said that his father was killed. A few minutes after finding the milk become completely red, he cried yet louder and rushing to his pony mounted it. His half brother Sahasradal, surprised at Champadal's conduct, said, "Where are you going, Champa? Why are you crying? Let me accompany you." "Oh, do not come to me. Your mother has devoured my father and mother. Don't you come and devour me." "I will not devour you. I shall save you." Sincerely had he uttered these words and galloped away after Champadal. When he saw his mother in her own Rakshasi form appearing at a distance and demanding that Champadal should come to her, he said, "I will come to you, not Champa." So saying, he went to his mother and with his sword, which he always wore as a young prince, cut off her head. Champadal had in the meantime galloped off a good distance as he was running for his life, but Sahasradal, by pricking his horse repeatedly, soon overtook him and told him that his mother was no more. This was small consolation to Champadal, as the Rakshasi, before being killed, had devoured both his mother and father and mother. Still he could not but feel that Sahasradal's friendship was sincere. They both rode fast, and as their horses were of the breed of Rajas, Pakhirajas, literally kings of birds, they travelled over hundreds of miles. An hour or two before sundown, they described a village to which they made up and became guests in the house of one of its most respectable inhabitants. The two friends found the members of that respectable family in deep gloom. Evidently, there was something agitating them very much. Some of them held private consultations, and others were weeping. The eldest lady of the house, the mother of its head, said aloud, "Let me go, as I am the eldest. I have lived long enough, and I have lived long enough. At the utmost, my life would be cut short only by a year or two. The youngest member of the house, who was a little girl, said, "Let me go, as I am young and useless to the family. If I die, I shall not be missed." The head of the house, the son of the old lady, said, "I am the head and, and representative of the family. It is but reasonable that I should give up my life." His younger brother said, "You are the main prop and pillar of the family. If you go, the whole family is ruined. It is not reasonable that you should go. Let me go, as I shall not be much missed." The two strangers listened to all this conversation with no little curiosity. They wondered what it all meant. Sahasradal at last, at the risk of being thought meddlesome, ventured to ask the head of the house the subject of their consultations and the reason of the deep misery, but too visible in their countenance and words. The head of the house gave the following answer: "Know them. Know then, O the guests, that this part of the country is infested by a terrible Rakshasi who has depopulated all the regions round. This town too would have been depopulated but that our king became a supplement before the Rakshasi and begged her to show mercy to us to show us his subjects to show mercy to us, his subjects." The Rakshasi replied, I will consent to show mercy to you and to your subjects only on this condition, that you every night put a human being, either male or female, in a certain temple for me to feast upon. If I get a human being every night, I will rest satisfied and not commit any further depredation on your subjects. Our king had no other alternative than to agree to this condition, for what human beings can ever hope to contend against a Rakshasi? From that day, the king made it a rule that every family in the town should, in its turn, send one of its members to the temple as a victim to appease the wrath and to satisfy the hunger of the terrible Rakshasi. All the families in this neighborhood have had their turn, and this night it is the turn for one of us to devote himself to destruction. We are therefore discussing who should go. You you must now perceive the cause of our distress. The two friends consulted together for a few minutes, and at the conclusion of their consultations, Sahasradal, who was the spokesman of the party, said, "Most worthy host, do not any longer be sad. As you have been very kind to us, we have resolved to requite your hospitality by over ourselves going to the temple and becoming the food of the Rakshasi. We go as your representatives." The whole family protested against the proposal. They declared that guests were like gods and that it was the duty of the host to endure all sorts of privation for the comfort of the guest, and not the duty of the guest to suffer for the host. But the two strangers insisted on standing proxy to the family, who, after a great deal of yea and nay, at last consented to the arrangement. So, my dear friends, we will read the next part tomorrow. Till then, thank you for being with me, and thank you for what should I say? Thank you for and thank you for listening, and and thank you for supporting me with all odds. and I am trying to improve my my reading. I hope one day I will read without any fumbling or without any stuck up without being stuck up with any words. So let's hope for the best. So till now, ta. So until then, I'm bidding goodbye. And sorry, I'm coming. Actually, I have one request to you, all of you. Please subscribe my channel if you think that it is worthy of a like. So please click that like button, and also provide me some comment, so that constructive comment, so that I can improve. So till then, ta.